In 1977, 20-year-old Colleen Stan was just like any other young woman, full of hope, dreams, and a trusting nature. She enjoyed traveling and meeting new people. Hitchhiking was a common way to get around, especially for free-spirited adventurers like her. But on May 19th of that year, her life changed forever. Colleen was hitchhiking from her home in Eugene, Oregon, to Northern California to visit a friend for a birthday party. She had already accepted rides from two other drivers that day, both without incident. When a blue Dodge Colt pulled up with a friendly-looking young couple and their baby inside, she thought, "This is safe." But what seemed like a harmless ride turned into a living nightmare. Inside the car were Cameron and Janice Hooker. To Colleen, they seemed like a normal, happy couple, a young family with a baby in the back seat. However, the Hookers had sinister intentions. About an hour into the drive, they stopped at an isolated area under the guise of stretching their legs. That's when Cameron Hooker struck. He forced Colleen out of the car at knife point, bound her hands and feet, blindfolded her, and gagged her. He then placed a terrifying contraption over her head, a handmade wooden box designed to completely silence her screams. Colleen had no idea that she was being taken to the Hooker's home in Red Bluff, California, where her unimaginable ordeal was about to begin. At the Hooker home, Cameron had prepared a small wooden box to serve as Colleen's prison. This wasn't an ordinary box. It was barely big enough for her to curl into a fetal position. It was airtight, soundproof, and utterly claustrophobic. For the next 7 years, Colleen would spend up to 23 hours a day inside that box. Cameron subjected her to brutal physical and psychological torture. She was regularly chained, whipped, and beaten. But perhaps the most horrifying aspect was the control he exerted over her mind. Cameron fabricated an entire narrative about an underground organization he called the Company. He told Colleen that this organization monitored her every move and would brutally kill her and her family if she ever tried to escape. Over time, the psychological manipulation was so effective that Colleen began to comply with her captor's demands without question. In 1978, about a year into her captivity, Cameron presented Colleen with a fake slave contract. This document stated that she was now his property. Out of fear for her life and the lives of her loved ones, she signed it. Cameron then gave her a new name, Kay. At this point, Colleen's reality was so warped that she began to accept her life as a slave. Cameron allowed her out of the box for short periods, but only to serve him or help with chores around the house. Astonishingly, Colleen was so brainwashed that she never attempted to run away, even when opportunities presented themselves. It's important to understand the role of Janice Hooker, Cameron's wife, in this horrifying story. Janice had been under Cameron's control since she was a teenager. He had manipulated her into believing that allowing him to take a slave would save their marriage. Janice was both complicit in the abuse and a victim of it. She helped Cameron keep Colleen captive, but she was also subjected to his violent dominance. Over time, the guilt of her involvement began to weigh on her. By 1984, 7 years after Colleen's abduction, Janice had reached her breaking point. She finally confided in a pastor and revealed the truth about what had been happening in their home. With his encouragement, she went to the authorities and reported her husband. Meanwhile, Colleen had been allowed to visit her family on a few occasions, but Cameron had convinced her not to reveal her captivity, saying the company would kill them if she spoke out. Even during those visits, her family didn't suspect the extent of her ordeal, though they noticed her strange behavior. When the police arrested Cameron Hooker, the full extent of his crimes came to light. Colleen testified against him in court, describing in harrowing detail the years of abuse and psychological manipulation she endured. In 1985, Cameron Hooker was convicted of kidnapping, sexual assault, and torture. He was sentenced to 104 years in prison. Janice testified against him in exchange for immunity. Colleen Stan, now free, faced the long and difficult journey of healing. Despite everything she endured, Colleen has worked to rebuild her life and even speaks publicly about her experience. The story of Colleen Stan is one of the most harrowing tales of captivity ever recorded. Today, her story continues to shock and inspire. It raises critical questions about the nature of control, manipulation, and survival under the most unimaginable circumstances. Thank you for watching, and if you found this story as haunting as we did, please like, share, and subscribe for more true crime content. Until next time, stay safe and be on the lookout.